We're talking more about opening leads again today. We've about beat this subject half to death, but today I'm going to show you a couple of more sophisticated opening lead agreements. You certainly don't have to adopt them if you and your partner feel like you're not ready to, but at some point in your game in the not too distant future, you should feel like that you want to know what to do. Otherwise, you just end up being confused and get victimized by wily declarers. So we're going to talk a little bit more about opening leads and get into a couple of more sophisticated opening lead agreement. And then we have 3 or 4 hands to discuss as well. So here we go. The main point of all this stuff on slide 1 is to remind you that defense actually begins during the auction. It's really important for an opening leader to review the bidding. You've all heard advice from teachers and more experienced players, don't lead a suit bid by the opponents, particularly when you have a broken tennis in that suit. But there are other things that you need to consider as well. If your partner bids, then you have the reasonable expectation that you might want to lead his suit. But you need to consider whether he opened the bidding or whether he overcalled. It could be either one. Many times when your partner opens the bidding, he uses a convenient minor. He may or may not have anything in that suit that would cause him to want you to lead it. It's just part of standard American bidding that enables us to use 5 card majors rather than 4 card majors. And all it promises is at least 3 cards in the suit, unless you have another agreement with your partner. So there can be 2 unbid suits as well, and you need to choose between those 2 unbid suits if your partner did not bid. But think about this. If your partner didn't bid and you're thinking about leading a major suit, most people will really strain to overcall one of a major, particularly the spade suit, because those who own the spades often own the hand. So if one of the unbid suits happens to be the spade suit, then it's fairly likely that your partner doesn't have 5 of them. So if your partner had the opportunity to overcall one spade and didn't, well, then maybe the unbid minor would be the better choice, because in most instances, bridge players love to overcall spades. Number one, it's pretty obstructive. If your right-hand opponent opens a club and you can overcall a spade, well, you've just stolen the whole 1 level of bidding. So we like to say that the fate of many contracts hinges on the play to the first trick. What declarer does, what the defenders do. But that starts with the opening lead. I know all of you are familiar with what the common opening lead guidelines are, but I'm going to show you some of the reasons why the guidelines are what they are. And even more importantly, we're going to talk about how you should apply those guidelines and what are the important considerations in applying them. Now, when you're defending a no-trump contract, and this is going to be the main thing we talk about today, defending a no-trump contract. After all, no-trump contracts are just incredibly common. So no-trump is a race. Playing a hand in no-trump is a race. Which side can get their suit set up and take their tricks first? Well, that means which suit is the defender's long suit. So if your partner has bid, it is often right to lead it. And just as I said earlier, there's a difference between opening a suit and overcalling a suit. If your partner opened with a minor, unless you have a better option, you're under no obligation to lead it, particularly, I should say, if you have a better option. Your partner may have 3 small cards in the suit if he opened a minor. You just never know. But if your partner opened a major suit, you know he has 5 cards in it. That rates to be your longest suit and the one that you should try to establish in order to defeat the contract. But if he were opened a minor suit, you don't have any such assurance. That minor suit most likely is not the best feature of his hand, unless he rebid it 2 or 3 times, of course. But we're just talking about an opening bid here, and you didn't have enough to bid, and so he didn't bid again. Then you don't know whether that opening minor really is a suit or isn't. All you know is that was his choice for an opening bid according to the guidelines that we have. But if your partner overcalled, then you know that that's the best feature of his hand. Number one, it's a 5-card suit. If you have a partner who typically overcalls 4-card suits and you only have 2 of them, well, then you have no such assurance. This is one of the reasons why it's important that an overcaller have 5 cards in a suit. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should blindly lead his suit. Part of it depends on how much you trust your partner's overcalls. Does he overcall jack-high suits? Well, if he has just a common garden variety overcall, he shouldn't overcall a jack-high suit. The only time it is appropriate to overcall a jack-high suit or a 10-high suit or something like that is if your partner has an opening hand himself and your side has just as much right to the contract as the opening bidder's side does. So in that case, he definitely wants to compete for the contract. So if he has overcalled a jack-high suit, he has other assets in his hand as well. And you're not going to know when that's happened. But if your partner does something like that, he should be promising you an opening hand. This is an important thing for you to discuss with your partner. Your overcalls need to mean something. I like for my partners to trust my overcalls. So if I overcalled and didn't bid again, didn't reopen with a double, didn't do anything to go on, indicating I have a minimum overcall, then my partner needs to be able to trust my overcalls because I want him to lead the suit. What happens if you overcall a really poor suit? Your partner, being the good partner that he is, leads it. He may have had a better option for leading. Maybe he has a suit of his own, but being a good partner, he opted to lead yours. Well, if you don't have anything good at the top, then you have just lost the element of timing. In other words, the defenders get to fire the first shot, that opening lead. That is a very important element when you're trying to set up your tricks. And if you've squandered it by having your partner lead a suit that you didn't really want him to lead, you were just trying to be obstructive, then this may not work out well for you. It has more implications. Overcalling a poor quality suit has more implications than just obstructing the opponents. You may prevent your partner from selecting the killing lead, for instance, that he may have had the opportunity to lead, but deferred to the suit that you bid. So you need to think carefully about your style in overcalling. But what your partner bids influences the opening leader's choice. Sometimes it turns out that having the opening leader lead his own long suit rather than one that partner bid that was of poor quality can be the killing lead. So you need to be judicious in how much of a cowboy you are with your overcalls. It can never hurt to have a quality suit to overcall, but it sometimes really hurts if you have a poor quality suit. So if partner overcalled a suit and you trust his overcalls, it is almost always right to lead that suit. But if your partner opened a convenient minor and then the opponents just shoved everybody out of the way and took the contract, then it's not an obligation to lead the minor. Sometimes you will make your own choice only to find out that your partner had 5 cards in the suit and was headed by ace, king, queen, or ace, king, jack. But there's no way to know that. Most of the time, that is not the case. A convenient minor is just that, convenient. Okay, a lot of what we're going to talk about today applies to both no trump and suit contracts. There is one exception to that, though, and that is leading from a sequence that's headed by the ace and the king. When you're on opening lead, the lead of the ace promises the king at trick 1. But later in the hand, the lead of the ace denies the king, because later in the hand, the correct card to lead from ace king is the king, because in the middle of the hand, the king is led from ace king. Why does this make a difference? Well, sometimes you need to be able to take a trick with an ace without promising the king. If you don't have this agreement with your partner and you leave the ace in the middle of the hand, a partner will rightly believe that you hold the king simply because you and he have agreed that ace from ace king is what you lead. But you forgot to learn the part that says that's a trick 1 thing only. In the middle of the hand, you would lead the king from ace king or from king queen. Partner won't know immediately which you hold, but he will know by the end of the trick. So let's look at an example here. You're sitting east here, and it's trick 4 in the hand. If you lead the ace and then try to get over to west hand, you can see this queen here. Here's the queen 10 sitting in front of your ace, king, jack. You don't want to just put down the ace and king and set up a trick for the declarer. You would like for your partner to lead that suit through that queen 10, wouldn't you? The way this suit is laid out here, declarer is not entitled to any tricks in it, not any at all. And if you just lead out your ace and king, then he's going to get one with the queen. But he will never lead this. I said a heart back. It should be a spade. That's because when you lead the ace in the middle of the hand, you deny having the king, and he will never return the spade. But if you lead the king and then try to find a way to get over to your partner's hand, looking at the dummy, paying attention to the bidding and the play to the first 3 tricks, and then you play your king, when your king holds the trick, your partner will know that you have the ace. And when he gets the lead again, he will remember that you played the king, but you didn't play the ace. If you turn your head and look at the dummy and see that queen in the dummy, you should be able to figure out that your partner wants you to lead a spade through that holding in the dummy for him, so that your side can take all 4 tricks at no trump, not just 3. If you lead out your ace and king, then declarer gets a trick with the queen, and he is not entitled to it. One of the main things about defense that people need to really focus on, particularly in the early stages, is how to give declarer only the tricks that he's entitled to. The people who get the best scores, even when defending, are the ones who gave the declarer only the tricks that he's entitled to. He may have made the bid, but as a defender, you can still get a good score just from holding the opponents to contract. If at a lot of the other tables, the declarer made an over trick, then you're going to get a good board as the defender if you just simply held them to contract. So don't assume that you have to set a contract to get a good score. Half the secret of defense is giving the declarer only that which he deserves, not one little bit more. Now, what does it mean when the opening leader leads an ace against a no trump contract? If you remember, when you're leading the top of a sequence against a no-trump contract, you're promising 3 cards as either a perfect sequence, that is the ace, king, queen, or a broken sequence. The top 2 cards touch, but there's one skip between the second and third, meaning ace, king, jack. If you lead the king, for instance, you would be promising either king, queen, jack, or king, queen, 10. If you do not have 3 cards in a sequence, say you just have ace, king, 9, or 8, whatever, then you need to lead the 4th best. Because odds are when you lead the ace only 2 cards out against a no-trump contract that you are setting up a trick for the declarer. He's playing no-trump. He's supposed to have some kind of a stopper. Queens will often suffice. So even if you have the ace and the king at the top of a suit against a no-trump contract, without the queen or the jack with it, you lead your 4th best. Now, here's an example. Look at this long, nearly solid spade suit here. If I'm holding that, defending 3 no trump, I am really interested in setting up this suit because I have excellent possibilities for taking enough tricks to set the contract. So ace hits the table. Now then, if my partner holds an honor, one of the missing top 4, or even it could even be the 10 that he would drop, he is supposed to drop it. This is a key element of figuring out how many times the opening leader should play the suit, particularly when you don't have a perfect sequence. If I lead out the ace and king, am I going to be setting up the queen for declarer? I'm not particularly interested in doing that, but I might do it. Notice I have 6 spades. I might do it if I have an outside entry. If I know I can get back in and cash the rest of my spade winners, I might just give up a trick to the queen. But I would really like to know what the situation is. If I don't have an outside entry, then I better switch if my partner doesn't drop one of the high honors on that first lead. For instance, in this example, partner doesn't have one of the high honors. So when he doesn't have one of those honors, he tells his partner not attitude, but how many cards he has in that suit, so that partner can figure out whether he should continue or not. Remember, when you're giving count, you play high-low to show an even number, or you play up the line to show an odd number. So in this case, when, let's say this is West, leads the ace, then East, or his partner, should play the 2. How does this help the opening leader? He says, well, there's no card smaller than the 2. So I'm pretty sure that this is not a high-low. My partner has an odd number of cards. I have 6 cards in the suit. So odds are that it's not 5 cards that he has. It might be a singleton, but I see only 2 cards in the dummy over here after I put the ace down and he plays the 2. Most commonly in this situation, your partner is showing you 3 cards. Well, if he has 3 cards and I have 6, that's 9 feet. There are 2 of them in the dummy. That means that the declarer has only 2 cards. I can count to 13, and I bet the rest of you can too. When partner doesn't throw the missing queen to get out of your way, that means the declarer has that card. But your partner's low count card has told you that that queen is going to drop. So it is safe to continue leading the suit.
Susan, question from the chat. If partner had 10-5-2 instead of 5-3-2, did you say to drop the 10 first?
In general, I would, yes, but that's not one of the more important ones. I would always get rid of the queen or jack. I don't want to be left holding the 3rd trick with the 10 It's not as likely as it is if you're holding the queen or the jack. But the absolutely worst thing that can happen in this situation is that you end up winning the third round and don't have a card left in the suit to get back to your partner, and you don't know where his entry is. So you don't know really anything about the sequence that your partner has, other than he has either the ace, king, queen, or the ace, king, jack, because this is a no trump contract. So if you have the 10, if the jack is in one hand and the queen is in the other, and they're both doubletons, then you might end up taking the third round. But when you start thinking about that, you know that can't happen because your partner's got 3 of the top 4 honors. When you have the 10, then he's going to swallow your 10. So the 10 is not as important. 10s are honors, but they're really honorettes, not quite there. They just aren't quite as important as the rest of them. In this first situation, the opening leader can infer from the play of the 2. No, this is not an attitude signal, because when against no trump, when leading the ace, promising either the ace, king, queen, or the ace, king, jack, partner is not going to have good attitude here. Attitude doesn't matter because you've got all those top cards. The only thing that the opening leader wants to know is, number 1, if he's missing the queen. In other words, if he's missing a top honor, then he wants his partner to throw it because he has the jack. That works out fine. But if partner doesn't have the top honor, he needs to know how many cards he has. That is of paramount importance when you are missing the queen here. As it turns out, when partner doesn't throw the queen, if you don't have this agreement, you don't have the agreement that he's going to give you count, then as West, you have no idea whether you should continue or not. There are some days when you will get lucky and you'll find queen doubleton and you'll run all 6 tricks. There are other days, though, when that queen will be guarded twice and your partner has just automatically played his lower card. If you haven't gathered by now that the cards played by the defenders all carry a message, then I'm going to tell you right now, it is important which card you play. You will get to the point where you are automatically looking for these kinds of things. This may be beyond you right now. But if I can get you to do no more than give your partner attitude on his opening lead when he leads a high card against either a no trump contract or a suit contract, with the exception of when your partner has led the ace. If you do nothing more than play a high card, if you like the lead, then you'll be on your way to getting to that point. The whole idea behind this kind of stuff is to add it incrementally. But that doesn't mean you have to do it today. Just put it on your list of things to work on next year or next month or maybe 5 years from now, whenever you want to. But I'm showing you these things because paying attention to details like this will really make a difference in your results. If you can improve your defense, then you can really, really improve your results when you play. And when defense works, there's nothing that's more fun. I'll just tell you right now. Now, contrast that with this situation. When West leads the ace, he still doesn't know where the queen is. He still has ace, king, jack, not ace, king, queen. But here, his partner has the queen. It's queen doubleton. And you might think, well, it doesn't matter. It's going to fall anyway. But partner has to make a decision on whether to continue before he plays the king. And he still doesn't know where the queen is. Notice you've played the 2 here, just like you did in the first example. So help him know what to do. If you can help your partner make the right decision or not put him on a guess, then you're miles ahead. Here, if you throw the queen, Partner says, "Ah, fantastic. I can now rip off the first 3 tricks easily. And I hope my partner has at least one more, because otherwise somebody may get a trick with the 10. The layout here, that's not going to happen because the 10 falls on the second round also. But notice when East throws that queen, now West doesn't have to guess at all. Without knowing that partner has the queen, he doesn't have to sit there and think, okay, do I or don't I? When you give your partners an opportunity to make a mistake, odds are they will. So help them out. In helping your partner, you're helping yourself and helping your results be better. When you throw the queen here, partner doesn't have to wonder whether or not to continue. Now, here's the third possibility that exists on this hand. When the opening leader plays the ace, partner doesn't know whether he has ace, king, queen, or ace, king, jack, because he doesn't hold either one of those cards, does he? But now it's his job, remember, when he doesn't hold a possible missing honor, and he doesn't know, partner may have ace, king, queen and not really be worried about it, but he might have ace, king, jack. So now it's his job to let his partner know how many cards he has. And remember, when we have an even number, we play high-low. So here, East would follow with the 5. Now West is going to think to himself, okay, I don't see any of the low cards at all. I see the 4, and that's all. I don't know where the 3 is. This could be either one. It could be that he has 2. It could be that he has 3, or it could be that he has 4. But if you sit and think about it, if he has 4 of them, then declare has a singleton. And this is a no trump contract, so that's not likely. So when he sees the 5, he has to think, okay, I don't see the 2, I don't see the 3. This very likely is a doubleton. If he had 3 of them, he would have played either the 2 or the 3 because he would start from the bottom. So here I'm making the assumption here that the 5 is not his lowest card. He has 2. This means that the declarer has 3. My partner didn't throw the queen, so the declarer has the queen. Why in the world do you go to all this trouble to do it? Well, that gives the opening leader a choice. If he has an outside entry, he'll just play his ace and king and give up the trick to the queen. There's still a good chance that he's going to be able to take 5 spade tricks and his outside entry card. However, if he has no outside entry, he will have to switch to another suit, hoping his partner can get the lead in another suit and push his last spade through that queen. It becomes really important if he doesn't have an outside entry to make sure that his partner leads the second of his cards back through the queen. If he doesn't have an outside entry and he just plays the ace and king and declarer takes the queen, 2 spade tricks are all that you're going to get. Your partner doesn't have another one to lead to you when he gets the lead. And the declarer sure isn't going to lead one to you. For one thing, there are no spades left in his hand or in the dummy at that point. But he's not going to do you any favors by leading one, even if he has it left. So in other words, knowing how many cards partner has when he doesn't show you the missing honor determines what West does going forward.
So Susan,
Yes.
if you held the queen and too small, you would go ahead and play the queen on the opening lead in that case.
Absolutely. Why would I do that? Be like, oh, my partner has the ace and king. I have the queen. I have control of the third round. Well, let's say that this queen 9-3 is your holding and that the 5-2 is declarer's holding. Yeah, right. They probably wouldn't be a no trump missing a spade stop, but You know what I've said lots and lots of times. Sometimes you just bid 3 no trump, remembering that the opponents have to find the suit where you're vulnerable. Well, in this case, they didn't have to look very hard to find it, did they? But in this case, let's say it's still a no trump contract and you're sitting there with queen 9-3. What happens if you save your queen to take the 3rd round? What happens?
We get 3 tricks.
Yeah, unless you can figure out whether part has another entry. And we know it's a no trump contract. He doesn't have the queen, so he must have had the jack. He's got either the perfect sequence or the broken sequence. That's 8 points. You can look at your hand and know immediately whether he has an outside entry. If you hold on to that queen, 3 spade tricks are all you're going to get when you're entitled to 6. So this is an important part of defense. It's called unblocking or getting out of your partner's way. The crux of it is you get the high cards out of your hand because you don't want to win the 3rd or 4th round of this suit and not have one to return. In other words, don't be stingy with that honor in your partner's suit in this situation. Tell him, hey, you don't need to worry. Go ahead and run whatever you've got. And at this point, you don't know whether he has 5 or 6 of them, but it doesn't matter. You don't want to win the 3rd round of the suit. You want your partner to, so he can keep leading it. So you absolutely throw the queen on the 1st round. Then I throw the 9. I don't want to take a trick with the 9 either. So in this situation, I'm all about getting the high cards out of my hand so that partner can continue playing his cards. I love it when the opponents block their suit and I'm declarer. That helps me out a bunch. I may not have a stopper in the suit, but if the opponents block their suit, well, that's as good as my having a stopper because they can't take all their tricks. I just have to know where the long cards are and make sure that that person doesn't get the lead. Does that make sense to everybody? Why you want to get rid of this card here instead of hanging on to it? That's the worst thing that can happen to you as a defender is win that 3rd round and think, the good news is I took the trick. The bad news is I don't have another one to return. So get rid of that card. It's not going to help you. Now, when your partner leads a king against a no trump contract, there is only one thing that he wants to know. Only one thing. And that is, do you have a touching honor? I have promised you either the king, queen, jack, or the king, queen, 10. I want to know, do you have the ace or do you have the jack? That's it. He's not worried about anything else. If you do hold an equal honor, you play your 2nd highest card. If you do not hold the ace or the jack, you play your lowest card, warning partner off. He can look at the dummy. If he sees the jack and partner plays his low card, then he knows that declarer has both the ace and the jack, and he is not going to lead the queen. There's a famous play in bridge that declarers like to pull off against inexperienced defenders. When one of the defenders leads the king on opening lead, that declarer knows where the queen is. Everybody at the table knows where the queen is. If he's holding ace jack small in his hand, he's going to duck that 1st round. He will play the ace on the queen, and now his jack is good. The problem is he is not entitled to 2 tricks there. He's entitled to only 1. So once this has happened to you 2 or 3 times as a defender, you think, I need to know when I'm leading the king from king, queen, jack. Now, obviously, if you have the jack, this is not a worry. But far more often, you have king, queen, 10. So when your partner leads the king against a no trump contract, the only thing he wants to know from you is, do you have the ace or the jack? If you have one of those two cards, play your second highest card, because those highest cards are often too valuable in terms of taking later round tricks in the suit. So play your second highest card. That's called the equal honor signal. When you play your second highest card, when you have one of those honors, or play your lowest card if you don't have either one. That's in effect a partner, I can't help you. I have terrible attitude about your lead. Cannot help you at all. That's a signal to the opening leader to switch immediately. Switch to another suit, because if you don't, that queen's going to get swallowed up by the ace, and now declarer has two tricks. Most experienced defenders will notice the card that their partners play because they've been caught in this subterfuge too many times. It's called the Bath coup, and it's one that a declarer will execute every time the opportunity presents itself, unless you're on to him. So when your partner leads the king against a no trump contract promising either king, queen, jack, or king, queen, 10, you need to tell him whether you have an equal honor. If you do not, warn him off. Warn him off. Now,
question from Sherry.
Go ahead, Sherry.
When you say second highest card, do you mean of the honors or just in your hand, the second highest card in your?
The second highest card in that suit. If you have a worthless doubleton, play the low card, because this is an attitude signal. It is not a count signal. This is attitude. So if you have only two cards, then you're going to play the lower of the two cards. If you have three cards and you do have one of those honors, you play your second one. Let's say that you have the 10, 8, 7. I don't want to play the 10. Well, if I had the 10, I'd know my partner had the jack. Let's say I have the jack 8, 4 in my hand. I have three cards. I have a touching honor. I have the jack. I would play the 8. I would play the 8. If I have only a doubleton, it's not one of the touching honors, then I'm going to play my second highest card and encourage partner to continue. If I don't have one of the touching honors, then I'm going to play the lowest card I have in my hand. There is one exception to the doubleton, and that is if you hold ace doubleton, we have to unblock again. Remember, throwing that queen was unblocking? Well, now we have to play the ace and return the lower card. We know that partner has at least the queen and 10. And if you don't see the jack on the board, then that means declarer has it. So you can return your card through declarer's 10, enabling your partner to get two more tricks. But when you hold ace doubleton and your partner has led the king against a no trump contract, you have to play the ace and return your little one. Get that ace out of your hand and get back over to your partner's hand where the length is. Same thing applies if partner leads the queen, promising the queen jack 10 or the queen jack 9. If you have a doubleton high honor, in this case, the doubleton king, overtake with the king and lead your low one back. Partner may or may not have the ace, but you do not want to win the second round and be stuck for a card to lead back. When a suit is blocked, or when I end up doing something silly like that, I'm just absolutely sick, because there's a way to unblock your card. You may end up not taking as many tricks as the opening leader had hoped because the declarer holds the ace. But if you end up taking the second round, you are certainly not going to end up taking the number of tricks that you had hoped. So get that high honor out of your hand and return the little one so your partner can keep leading the suit. That's the whole point. You need to have the person on lead who has the length in the suit so he can keep leading it, either to take the winners or to continue to establish the suit. Now, here comes the really tough kind of sequence to read. Leading from an interior sequence is really hard for a declarer to read, and it's really hard for the opening leader's partner to lead. Each one of these sequences right here is an example of an interior sequence. Now, for these that are headed by the ace, you would not lead the jack or the 10 against a suit contract, because that would be underleading an ace against a suit contract, and good players just simply do not do that. But against a no trump contract, which is what we're talking about here, notice we have a high honor, and then we have some skips here, followed by 2 or 3 cards in a row. Here we have ace, missing the king and queen, jack 10 9. That's a nice, perfect sequence in the interior of the suit. The number of cards required for an interior sequence is only 2. So we could have ace, jack 10 6 4 instead of the 9, and you would still lead the jack. We're leading the top of a sequence still. It's just not the very top card we have in our hands. When we have the king and there's a skip, here we have jack 10 8. That's a 3-card broken sequence here in the middle. But as I said, we only need 2 cards in that sequence for it to be the right thing to lead. Here you would lead the jack as well. Here we have a bunch of skips. Ace all the way down to 10 9 7. The appropriate lead here is the 10. Remember, the lead of an ace against a no trump contract promises either ace king queen or ace king jack. We don't have that here, but we do have an interior sequence. This is the third kind of sequence that leaders against no trump contracts can use. Same thing here. If the top card is the king, the lead here then would be the 10. Interior sequences headed by the jack or by the 10 are often the lead of choice. Now, only 2 are required for that interior sequence. That's a little bit different. The difference is you have a high honor above it, and it is not an honor that is adjacent to the top card in the interior sequence. And I will admit all day long that when I put the jack on the table, my partner will have a tendency to think that that is the top card I have in that suit. As I said, it is hard to read. But the interior sequence is the choice when you have this kind of holding, and it takes preference over top of nothing. Remember, I've always said sequence leads are your first choice, unless, of course, your partner's bid and you probably don't have a sequence in that suit. But when you're just choosing from your hand, a sequence lead is right up there at the top with anything that you can lead against no trump. So, as I said, only when defending a no trump contract, particularly with suits headed by the ace, never lead a card, a low card, whether it's a jack or a 10 or whatever, from a suit that has the ace at the top when you are defending a suit contract. Linda Hughes always used to say that, well, if you underlead an ace against a suit contract, you get what you deserve when you see the singleton king hit the dummy. That means you are never getting that ace, but you deserve it for underleading against a suit contract. It is never a good lead. And in fact, some people call it the absolute worst lead in bridge. And I'm one of those people.
Question from Janet.
Yes, Janet.
I may have missed it. Why would you not lead the 4th best?
Because you have a sequence on the interior. Here's the deal. I don't want my opponent, and my partner may have a high honor or may not. I don't have any idea what he has in that suit unless he bid it. And in that case, I'm probably going to lead the ace out. But this assumes that your partner did not bid the suit. If you lead your 4th best, you would lead the 9 on example number 1. Now, that's the bottom card in a sequence. Is that the way we lead from a sequence? It's not, is it? When you have a sequence, you lead the top card. This is one type of sequence. And leading the top of an interior sequence is definitely preferable to leading low. Have you ever led low and have the declarer win the trick with the 8 or the 7 or something like that. That's the problem when you lead fourth best from a broken suit. And lots of times that's your best option to lead. But you end up giving the declarer a really cheap trick. When you lead the jack here, partner may think that that's your top card. Declarer may think that's your top card. And if the king is in the dummy, he's going to be a little bit reluctant to go up with the king because he thinks that it's most likely that your partner has the ace. And he does not want to sacrifice his king. But when you have an interior sequence, your lead is not fourth best. It is the top of the interior sequence. So here's an example. I'm on lead with that first example that I was just talking about. I lead the jack. Obviously, declarer is going to win the trick with the king, isn't he? And at some point, my partner gets the lead and he thinks, man, it looks to me like that my partner has a suit that's headed by the jack and I have no honors. There are no honors in the dummy. It looks to me like the declarer has ace, king, and queen, and that there's no future in this suit. I think my partner just had a sequence and he was hoping that I could help him with a high honor, and I couldn't. So I'm thinking I probably need to switch, but you can see from looking at this that he absolutely needs to continue the suit. He needs to lead through that queen. If declarer plays the queen, well, partner swallows it with the ace. If he plays his low card, then partner will look at the dummy and he'll put the 9 on it and win the trick with the 9, then play the ace and take the rest of those tricks. He got 4 tricks out of that holding. That's one of the reasons that you lead the top of the interior sequence. So how can East figure out what to do? This is a very common situation. It's hard for him to read. Declarer knows what the situation is. As soon as he wins the trick with the king, if East had the ace, he would play it. Number one, to get it out of his hand. And when he doesn't play it, notice that if he has ace doubleton, he's going to play the ace and return the small card. After declarer's king or queen, whichever one he chooses to play, holds the trick, then he knows where the ace is because East didn't play it. And he doesn't want to let East get the lead. He's going to do everything he can to keep East from gaining the lead. Well, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. The only thing that can help him here now is, does East know what the situation is? Has he read that jack as the top card in partner's hand, or has he read it as possibly the top of an interior sequence? This has been a problem for everyone who has ever led tops of interior sequences. And of course, somebody figured out a little trick that you can use. It's called using coded 9s and 10s when you lead. Instead of the jack, you lead either the 10 or the 9 from this holding. Let's see how that works. The lead of the 10 or the 9 will show either 2 or 0 higher cards. Let's look at that holding. This is the one we had there. Leading the 10 shows either 2 or 0 higher cards. Well, in this case, there are 2. One of the higher cards has to be touching the card that was led. This works. Ace, jack, 10 will work because the jack is touching the 10. Ace, queen, 10 will not work. That's a sequence I never want to use for an opening lead against a no-trump contract. I need my partner to lead that suit. So notice here, when you lead the 10, one of the higher cards is touching it, and then there's another non-touching card, because if it were touching, it would be the top of the sequence and you would lead that card. Now, opening leader leads the 10 and his partner then will look around for the jack. If he doesn't have it, if the dummy doesn't have it, and if declarer doesn't win the trick with the jack, then he knows his partner has 2 higher cards. That makes it much easier for partner to interpret the lead. Well, people like to use coded 9s and 10s. I've seen it in tournaments frequently, and I've played it with a couple of partners. Some people don't like it because it makes things easier for your partner to read, but it also means that the declarer has a good chance of reading it as well. And this is one thing that most people will tell you when you sit down at the table and they play these leads. Somebody will usually say, we play 2/1, 14-17, no trump, and coded 9s and 10s. They disclose this up front. Many of them do. Now then, using this convention, the 10 is the lead on number 1, showing 0 or 2 higher cards. As I said, if partner looks around and cannot see the jack in his hand or in the dummy and declarer doesn't play it, then he automatically knows that you have 2 higher cards. If he can see the jack either in his own hand or in the dummy, or the declarer wins the trick with it, then he knows that that 10 is the top card in your hand. It's the same situation here with number 2. This is the same kind of interior sequence. It's just the top card is the king. But notice it doesn't touch. We don't have a 3-card perfect sequence. We have a gap between 1 and 2. It's okay to have a gap, but the gap should be between cards 2 and 3 when you're leading the top of the sequence. Here, this is an interior sequence, and if you play coded 9s and 10s, then the 10 is the lead. Once again, partner will look for the jack, the card immediately above it. My partner either has 0 or 2 higher cards than the 10. If I can see the card immediately above it somewhere, I know it's 0, and I know that's the top card. Same thing here if that interior sequence is the 10-9 rather than the jack 10. In this case, you lead the 9. You lead the second card in the sequence, not the first. Leading the 9 says I have either 0 or 2 higher cards in this suit. Partner will look around for the 10. Once again, we're looking for the card that is immediately above the card that was led. If we see it, then the card that was led was the top card. If we don't see it, and if declarer doesn't play it, then that means that your partner has 2 higher cards in the suit. Some people like to call this jack denies, 10 implies, because the lead of the jack in these cases here, or the lead of the 10, the top card in the interior sequence, now denies a higher honor. Jack denies a higher honor, 10 implies. That also applies to 10 denies and 9 implies leads. It's just not quite as rhythmic and doesn't sound quite as good. But it's the same thing. It's coded 9s and 10s means jack denies, 10 implies. And this is a convention a lead convention that people have adopted to help them distinguish whether it's an interior sequence lead or whether it's the top of a sequence lead. This gets into a little bit more sophisticated play, but once you get to the point where you're consistently using leads from interior sequences, which are very good leads, even though they're hard to read, then this is something that you can use to help you distinguish between the two. Is this beginning stuff? Absolutely not. But most of you who are in this group are at a stage in your bridge careers where this is not beyond you. It's just whether this is one of the things you want to add now or later on down the road. I'm just really presenting most of this stuff as possible ideas for you guys to incorporate into your games later on, maybe. Now, a lot of what I present here, like, for instance, you play the bottom of touching honors when you're trying to win the trick, but the top when you're trying to lead it. That makes a major difference in your game. You need to do that from the beginning. But special lead conventions like this are the things that you can put on your list either to work on sometime soon, or they can be a someday kind of a feature. I think coded 9s and 10s can be very helpful. I don't like the part about the fact that it gives away a lot of information to the opponents as well. But that's the nature of this game. We have no secret agreements here. Bridge is everything's out on the table, and we have to use logic and our best reasoning and signaling and all of that to communicate with our partners. And then next week, we're going to talk about a couple more things, and then I have some hands that we'll discuss.
Okay, question from the chat is, do you have to disclose coded 9s and 10s?
I think it's very nice to do that. I tend to err on the side of over alerting and disclosing. It should be on your convention card, and the opponents are always entitled to ask to see your card. And if they want to know about your lead agreements, they may turn to the partner of the opening leader and say, what is your carding, or what are your leads, or something like that, if it looks like it might be a coded 9 and 10. I personally think it's a nice thing to do, but it's not absolutely required.
Do you use the coded 9s and 10s in suit contracts also, or is it just a no trump thing?
But I don't use it when leading against a suit contract if the suit is topped by the ace, because I never lead a low card from a suit headed by the ace that does not also include the king. So most of the time they're going to be used against no trump contracts. And holding the king jack 10 against a suit contract doesn't look particularly appealing to me to lead the jack or the 10. Most likely I'm going to look for something else. Hi, this is Susan. Thanks for watching this video today. Most of these videos come from our free bridge lessons that we present on Zoom every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. If you'd like to join us for those lessons, you can email us at the address shown below, and we'll send you the link. If you can't attend the lessons, then feel free to subscribe to our channel, and you'll be notified when there is a new one added. Again, thanks for stopping by, and we hope to see you soon.